let's dive in. What do you think is the single biggest factor, the one thing that really determines if you succeed or fail when you're trying to reach a goal? Could be anything, right? Learning English, getting fit, some big work project.
That's the core question, isn't it? And looking at the sources we've got today, one thing keeps popping up. It's self-discipline.
Self-discipline, right.
But not just, that first burst of excitement. It's the thing that keeps you going when that initial motivation kind of fades.
Oh, I feel that.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
Because setting the goal, that's the easy part. Everyone loves doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But sticking to it when it gets tough or boring or just life happens. That's where and I bet a lot of you listening, just hit a wall sometimes.
Yeah.
It's that, I'm definitely going to the gym tomorrow morning scenario, and then morning comes, and somehow Netflix just seems so much more appealing. This start tomorrow trap, it's real.
It absolutely is. We've all been there. You set these big, ambitious intentions, and then, boom, you get overwhelmed or distracted, and that momentum just vanishes surprisingly fast.
And it feels bad, like you're somehow lacking,
Yeah.
Undisciplined. It can really chip away at your confidence.
Definitely.
Which is exactly why we're doing this deep dive. Our mission today, looking at these sources, is to really unpack how you build that discipline practically and understand why it's not just about gritting your teeth and trying harder.
Yeah.
We want to share actual strategies you can use to stay consistent, even when it feels like a real uphill battle.
And the great thing about the material here is that these principles, they're not just abstract ideas. They apply across the board. Learning English, fitness goals, work stuff, personal growth. It's all connected.
Yeah, universal stuff. And what I liked is how practical the sources are, real actionable steps you can actually implement.
Right. They even point to extra resources, guides with summaries and exercises, and even a vocabulary section, which is super helpful if you're learning English.
Yeah, nice bonus. It grounds everything in, what you can actually do. Tools, not just talk.
Exactly. Equipping you, the listener, with something tangible.
Okay, so let's unpack it. We've talked about the problem that struggle with consistency. Now let's get into the solutions from the sources. First, big strategy they highlight.
Start with tiny habits.
Tiny habits. Okay, that sounds almost too simple because we tend to go big, don't we? I'm going to work out an hour every day. 2 hours of English study starting now.
Yes, that exact trap. And what happens by Wednesday, you're behind schedule, you feel like a failure, and poof, you just stop. It's the classic New Year's resolution flame out, but it can happen anytime.
Totally. Mid-January blues, but maybe just midweek blues.
Precisely. The source makes a strong point. Trying these huge, drastic changes often just leads to burnout and feeling totally overwhelmed. So the alternative, these tiny habits.
Of how tiny are we talking?
Almost ridiculously small. Commit to just 5 minutes of exercise. Or, for English learning, 5 minutes of focused practice. Just 5.
5 minutes. That feels like.
Right.
Like it wouldn't even make a difference. How does that actually work?
But that's the clever part.
Yeah.
And this connects to ideas from James Clear's Atomic Habits, which gets mentioned. The immediate goal isn't some massive result. It's about building momentum and consistency. You make the habit so small, so easy that you literally cannot talk yourself out of it. There's almost zero friction to getting started.
Right. It removes that mental hurdle. You don't have to psych yourself up for this huge effort. You're just doing this tiny thing. And I guess you start building the identity like I'm someone who exercises, even if it's just for 5 minutes.
Exactly. You're proving it to yourself consistently.
And you're right, that consistency, even with tiny steps, it must compound. 5 minutes today, 5 tomorrow.
Ever.
Over weeks and months, that actually adds up to something significant, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And without all the stress and willpower battles.
It becomes almost automatic, yeah. Much easier than fighting yourself for an hour every day. Consistency really beats intensity, especially when you're starting out.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Start tiny. So building on that consistency idea, what's the next strategy the sources bring up?
Focusing on systems, not just goals.
Systems, not goals.
Right.
This feels important because setting a goal like, I want to lose 30 pounds or I want to be fluent in English, that's a start, but the sources say it's not enough on its own, right?
Not nearly enough. If the goal is all you have, it's easy to feel lost or, get really discouraged if you don't see big results immediately.
Yeah, I've definitely felt that. You have the target way off in the distance, you're motivated for a bit, but there's no clear path for what to do today, so you just kind of drift.
Exactly. A system is that path. It's the series of small daily actions, the processes you follow, that are designed to move you towards that goal.
Okay.
And the key shift is putting your focus, your energy, purely on executing the system each day, not obsessing over the final outcome way down the line.
So for someone learning English, instead of constantly thinking, am I fluent yet? Why aren't I fluent? The focus becomes,
Did I do my 10 minutes of vocab practice this morning?
right.
Did I listen to that English podcast on my commute like I planned?
Okay, so you focus on the process, the daily routine.
Exactly. And when you do that, the action starts to become automatic. You're less reliant on willpower or feeling motivated because you're just following the system you set up. It's like paving a road once it's there, walking on it is much easier than bushwhacking towards a distant peak.
Yeah, it takes the decision-making out of it each day. Becomes second nature. Okay, but sometimes, even with a good system, the actual actions can still feel like, well, a drag, a chore.
Which brings us perfectly to the next strategy. Make the habits attractive.
Ah, okay. Because, yeah, discipline often feels like forcing yourself to do something unpleasant, that feeling of dread
Or
almost.
just dragging yourself to the gym, yeah.
Yeah.
So the sources suggest finding ways to make the habit itself more enjoyable. A key tactic is pairing it, linking the habit you want to build with something you already like doing.
Okay, so give me an example. If I kind of hate cardio,
Could you listen to your absolute favorite podcast, maybe one you only let yourself listen to while doing cardio?
ooh, okay. Or watch that guilty pleasure TV show, but only on the exercise bike.
Exactly. It's about positive reinforcement. Your brain loves rewards. When you connect the habit you're building with something genuinely enjoyable, you create a stronger positive loop. You start looking forward to it, or at least dreading it less.
So applying that to English practice. Maybe you watch an exciting show you love, but in English. Or reward yourself after a study session, like a small treat or 15 minutes of doing something fun.
Precisely. You're basically hacking your own reward system. A little bit of strategic self-bribery, you could say.
I like that. Self-bribery in a good way.
When habits feel rewarding, they stick much better. It shows discipline doesn't have to be this joyless grind.
Okay, making it attractive, I'm sold. Now, speaking of making things easier, the next big tip seems crucial. Design your environment for success.
Yes. This one is huge and honestly often overlooked. Your surroundings, physical and social, can either be your biggest ally or your worst enemy for discipline, often without you even realizing it.
Oh, I know this one. That messy desk just screaming procrastination. Or having snacks right there next to the computer. It's like setting yourself up to fail.
It really is, isn't it? So the idea is to consciously set up your environment to make the good habits easier, more obvious, and the bad habits harder, less convenient. Remove the friction for what you want to do. Add friction for what you want to avoid.
So practically, instead of just hoping I'll work out, I should literally put my gym clothes and shoes right by my bed, so they're staring me in the face when I wake up.
Exactly. Make the cue impossible to miss, reduce the steps needed to get started, or move those tempting cookies from the counter to a high shelf, maybe in the back of the pantry. Out of sight requires more effort.
Right. And for English learners,
Keep your study book, your flashcards, maybe your headphones for listening practice right there on your desk or coffee table, visible and easy to grab. If they're hidden away, it's that out of sight, out of mind thing.
makes sense. Make the good stuff easy, the distracting stuff hard. What about the people aspect? The social environment?
Also important, yeah. The source touches on surrounding yourself with supportive people, friends or colleagues who cheer on your goals, maybe even share similar ones. That provides encouragement, normalizes the effort. On the flip side, friends who constantly tempt you with things that pull you off track. Maybe suggesting cake when you're trying to eat healthier. Well, they might be lovely people, but maybe not the best accountability partners for that specific goal.
Fair point. Though sometimes, cake happens.
Sometimes cake is essential, yes, but maybe not every day when you're trying to build a new eating habit.
Okay, so we've got external factors, tiny habits, systems, making things attractive, setting up the environment. What about our internal state?
Great transition. That brings us to the next strategy, managing your willpower and energy.
Willpower, the thing that seems to disappear by evening.
Exactly. The source highlights this idea that willpower isn't bottomless. It's more like a muscle. It gets tired with use throughout the day. Decision fatigue is real.
That explains so much. Why by 8 p.m., any grand plans for productivity just dissolve. And the sofa becomes magnetic. My willpower muscle is definitely depleted by then.
Right. Resistance is lowest when you're tired. So the practical advice is Tackle your most important tasks, the ones needing the most focus or discipline, when your energy and willpower are naturally highest.
Which for a lot of us is probably earlier in the day.
Often, yeah. So if getting that workout in is a top priority, maybe morning is the best bet. If focused English study needs your best brain power, block out time for it when you feel sharpest, before the day drains you.
Find your peak time and guard it fiercely for the hard stuff. Makes sense.
And related to conserving that mental energy, another suggestion is to automate decisions.
Automate decisions. How did that work?
Well, think about all the small choices you make daily. What to wear, what to have for breakfast, which route to take. Each one uses a tiny bit of mental bandwidth. They add up. And they contribute to that willpower fatigue we just talked about.
So by making routine decisions automatic, you save that brain energy for the things that really matter, like concentrating on grammar rules or pushing through a tough workout set.
Precisely. Decide once what your workout clothes will be for the week. Or establish a fixed, non-negotiable time for your daily 10 minutes of English listening. Fewer trivial choices